everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask Kate, brought to you by the Children's Tumor Foundation. Today we'll be continuing our in-depth look at living with NF2, and we're going to focus specifically today on understanding the genetics of NF2 a little bit more in depth. I'm so happy you've joined us. If you are sheltering at home, I hope that you're healthy and staying safe. If you have questions about COVID-19, how that impacts you can always check our website. We have updates there, and we encourage everyone to continue to try to follow the CDC guidelines to the best of their abilities. So let's get started. So when we think about NF2 and we think about the fact that we call it a genetic condition, a lot of times there's confusion for people about what that actually means. So the question I get a lot is, my child has NF2 and it's genetic, so did I give it to them? So let's talk about the difference between the idea of inherited and genetic. So when we say something is genetic, what we mean is that the condition is caused by a mutation or a change in a gene sequence somewhere in the body. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But when we say inherited, that's the idea that that condition, that mutation or change was inherited from a parent. So with NF2, we know that it is, sometimes that's the case, a parent has NF2, has a child, the child has NF2. And then we say, yes, that's inherited from the parent. But we also have spontaneous NF2. So this means that neither parent has NF2, but a change happened in that gene sequence, and now you have a child with NF2. And so it is not always inherited from the parent. So let's talk a little bit about what you might hear around NF2 are these words, autosomal dominant. So what that really means is that if we say that a condition is autosomal, it means that the gene in question that has a change that's causing NF2 is a non-sex chromosome. It's chromosome 22. It's not related to the sex, and that's why it affects men and women equally. And so it also, when we say dominant, that means that only one parent, a single copy, I shouldn't say one parent, a single copy of mutated or changed NF2 gene, because everybody has two, one from mom, one from dad. So a single copy that has that change results in NF2. This means that you cannot be a carrier for NF2. So if you have a change in your NF2 gene, then you have NF2. Now this gets a little complicated and confusing because there's an issue in NF2 that we call mosaicism. So mosaic NF2 means that, well, let's start with classic NF2. When any baby is becoming a baby, it starts with an egg and a sperm, okay? So when they come together, if the NF2 mutation is in the sperm or the egg from mom or dad, then that mutation will be in every cell of the body, because as the sperm and egg come together, cell division starts to create that life, right? Now, if we have mosaicism, what that means is that that mutation was not an egg or sperm, but as that mutation, or as that division, cell division started to happen, there was that change happens in the NF2 gene somewhere along this cell division line. And that means that we're going to see the mutation in the NF2 gene only in certain cells of the body. Often, but not always, someone with mosaic NF2 will have a milder case, a milder presentation. Maybe they only have a tumor and hearing problems on one side, not both sides, fewer tumors developed in the body, things like that. Mosaicism can also make genetic testing complicated for NF2 because we may have a hard time identifying the mutation if it's not in every cell of the body, okay? So that kind of explains some of the challenges when it comes to genetic testing for NF2. Now, when we think about the inheritance pattern, if you're living with NF2 and you're thinking about having a family, for example, the way that works is that for every child that you are a part of creating, you have a 50-50 chance that that child will inherit NF2 from you. So it's like tossing a coin with each individual pregnancy. So if you have 4 children, it doesn't mean that 2 will have NF2 and 2 won't, not 50-50 in that sense. It's that for each of those 4 pregnancies, there's a coin toss chance that that child will inherit NF2. So it's possible that none of them will, it's possible that all of them will. We're not able to predict that. So let's talk about the NF2 gene mutation. So first, let me just pause and say that thanks to a lot of science fiction and movies and Hollywood, the concept of mutation is a little scary. So if you think about genes and how the body gets its instructions for the color of your hair and the shape of your nose and all of those things, think about billions of letters being written out over and over, and it's just the same 4 letters being written in a very specific order. So what happens when we have a mutation in a gene is that the order of those letters perhaps get out of order. They switch, or maybe we drop a letter, we're missing a letter, or we add a letter that we don't need, right? So there's a lot of different ways that can happen. It's the body doesn't have a proofreader, doesn't have somebody to check all those letters before a baby's born, and so this is something that sometimes can happen. So the specific NF2 gene, another kind of fun fact, is that genes are often named for what they don't do well, so what they're not doing properly. So everybody has 2 NF2 genes. A lot of times people think if I have the NF2 gene, it means I have NF2. That's not true. Everybody has NF2 genes. I have 2 NF2 genes. When you have a mutation or a change in one of those genes, you have NF2. So the NF2 gene is responsible for making a really important protein that we call myelin. It's short for a very long bunch of words that I'm not going to try to say on the video. But the myelin protein seems to be, and we're still learning, we're still trying to understand all of this, but it seems to get involved when cells come into contact with each other, and it prevents them from over dividing and multiplying. So when there's a change in the NF2 gene, then the instructions to make the myelin protein get a little messed up, and maybe you're not making enough of that protein, it's not doing its job the way that it's supposed to, and then we see that over division and over multiplication that can happen. And that is what results in the tumors that we see growing in people who have NF2 on the auditory nerves, and brain, spine. These kinds of tumors are happening because that myelin protein isn't saying, hey, whoa, stop, we don't need any multiplication here. These tumors are benign and non-cancerous, as we've talked about, but we've also talked about the fact that not being cancerous doesn't mean that they don't cause problems for people who are living with NF2. They can cause hearing loss and balance issues, pain, difficulty with movement or nerve sensations in the body, and can be a real challenge. So that sort of goes over the basics of NF2. Originally, I had planned to spend a little time in this video talking about family planning for people with NF2 or someone who loves someone with NF2 and wants to start a family. But after attempting to put that talk together, I decided that it's a very personal discussion, it's a very personal decision. And so what I'll say instead is that I strongly encourage you, if you are living with NF2 or in a partnership with someone with NF2 and you want to start a family, is to look into seeing a genetic counselor. That person is an expert in this field, can go over all of this information with you, and can help you understand specifically what your situation is and what the benefits and risks and options are to starting the family that you want. Of course, I'm always happy to answer questions, to have this conversation. You can send me an email. I'm happy to discuss it. I'm also happy to help you identify a genetic counselor in your area if that's something you need help with. So thank you again for joining us today. I really hope to see you leaving comments below. We have at least one more video dedicated to NF2 coming your way. And if you have ideas for topics, NF2 related or not, please email me or leave a comment below. I would love to hear from all of you. Thank you so much. Stay safe.